Just like Game of Thrones and the novels before it, House of the Dragon Season 1 has spawned some pretty wild theories, from secret lovers to the secrets of dragon bonding. In this video, I will cover a handful of the most interesting House of the Dragon theories from Season 1. I will not be spoiling anything from the book, Fire and Blood, that the series is based on, but I will make reference to the main Game of Thrones series and those books. Before we start the video, comment your favorite fan theory below, and if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. The first theory I will cover is losing Velaryon compromised Viserys' immune system. In House of the Dragon, Viserys suffers a small cut from the Iron Throne, which in itself was seen as a bad omen. It was believed if a king or queen was cut by the Iron Throne, they were deemed unworthy to rule. As well as being a bad omen of Viserys' rule, the cuts he experienced left him with dozens of terrible wounds across his body, and despite the maester's best efforts, the wounds could not be healed. In the behind the scenes, it is revealed that Viserys suffers from a non-contagious form of leprosy, resulting in some pretty horrific injuries, losing an entire arm, an eye, and a portion of his cheek. This terrible sickness ends up killing Viserys in episode 8, but in the books, we are continually conveyed the notion that Targaryens were untroubled by the pestilence that affected common men. Whether this belief is true, or just an extension of Targaryen arrogance and their belief that they were closer to gods than men, it is not 100% clear. But there is likely some merit to this idea. Throughout history, Targaryens have been less susceptible to sickness. Specifically, there are very few cases of Targaryen dragon riders succumbing to illness while their dragon is still alive. This is because between every Targaryen dragon and their rider, there exists a unique magical bond. This magical tether seems to grant enhanced vitality and resistance to sickness for the rider. This is most evident with Aenys Targaryen, Aegon the Conqueror's firstborn son, who was a sickly child, but after receiving and bonding with a dragon hatchling, his physical condition significantly improved, and as the dragon grew, so too did Aenys. Daenerys also experiences a similar increase in strength and an improved immune system and healing factor. Shortly after receiving her dragon eggs, bruises and wounds sustained from riding all day begin to heal at an alarming rate. Another example of this is in House of the Dragon. Daemon gets completely covered in the blood of the grayscale infected crab feeder. Grayscale was a notoriously contagious disease. If a regular person was subjected to a similar level of exposure, they would likely have contracted grayscale. But in Daemon's case, he seems completely unaffected. This all seems to indicate that bonding with a dragon grants a boost to the rider's health and their immune system. However, just as becoming a dragon rider grants a slew of benefits, losing a dragon should remove them. In Viserys' case, he claimed Velaryon the Black Dread, who was previously the mount of Aegon the Conqueror and Maegor the Cruel. In doing so, this same magical bond would have been formed between Viserys and Velaryon, empowering him with the boost to his immune system. However, Velaryon died only a year after being claimed by Viserys. Losing Velaryon could have removed Viserys' magically empowered immune system, leaving him open to be devastated by the illness we see him contract in House of the Dragon. Just as the Hound and Gendry returned in Game of Thrones, we might see the return of Laenor Velaryon. In episode 7, Laenor faked his death with the help of Daemon and Rhaenyra, sailing off into the sunset to live a happy life with his partner, but he seems to have forgotten about his dragon Sea Smoke. This turn of events is a large departure from the books. Instead of escaping, Laenor is killed, which enables Sea Smoke to be claimed by another later on in the timeline, just as Vhagar was claimed by Aemond after Laena's death. In all of George R.R. Martin's works, there has never been a case of a dragon bonding with more than one human at a time. The bond between a dragon and their rider is one that lasts until death. Given that a dragon's lifespan extends far beyond a human's, it is normal for a dragon to have multiple riders over the course of their lives. So while Laenor lives, no one else can claim Sea Smoke. This leaves the potential for Laenor to return to Westeros and Sea Smoke. Laenor's story in Season 1 was largely about his failure to do his duty and uphold his oaths to defend his family and Rhaenyra. This conflicted with his desire to be true to himself and his yearning for adventure. This story thread could be a compelling through line to draw him back to Westeros and the conflict. Perhaps he will hear news of the war. Recognizing the threat that his father and House Velaryon face, he may feel honor-bound to return, remounting Sea Smoke and aiding the Blacks. This would let us see a more adventurous Laenor, fighting battles as opposed to a politically constricted character in the role he filled as Rhaenyra's husband. The next theory is Larys is a Greenseer and Warg. A Greenseer in the Game of Thrones universe is someone like Bran or Bloodraven, who were born with the innate ability to view past, present, or future events through the eyes carved into weirwood trees. Greenseers were also wargs, capable of entering the mind of an animal and controlling their actions. These abilities are extremely rare and exclusive to those with blood of the first men. House Strong are known to be first men and might practice the worship of the old gods. So Larys should have the necessary magical potential that qualifies him to possess these abilities. A lot of important conversations throughout Season 1 have occurred in front of the weirwood tree in King's Landing. In the books, there is no weirwood tree in King's Landing at this time, so the inclusion of the weirwood is a conscious choice by the writers and might explain how Larys gathers information that he later sells to Alicent for feet pics. Being a warg, Larys can take his spying and information gathering to a whole new level. Throughout the Red Keep, we are continually shown rats scurrying about, even making their way into royal chambers, where other sensitive matters are often discussed. Larys could be taking control of these rats, using their eyes and ears to collect important information to be sold for yet more feet pics. This could explain how he knows of the moon tea that was brought to Rhaenyra back in episode 4, or how he discovered Mysaria's network of spies throughout the Red Keep in episode 9. Bloodraven, who lived decades after House of the Dragon, used similar warging and green-seeing abilities to gather information during his time as Master of Whispers and Hand of the King. George R.R. Martin likes to have characters echo throughout history, so Larys could be an echo or precursor of Bloodraven. There might be an even darker layer to this theory. In the Game of Thrones books and TV show, we know that particularly powerful wargs can take control of not just animals but also humans. We see this with Bran and Hodor. In Book 5, we also read of a warg attempting to take control of a human. We are specifically told that to fend off the will of a warg, it is common for those being possessed to bite off their tongue. The shot of pain forces the invading warg out of their mind. So it could be possible that Larys removing the tongues of those prisoners in episode 6 was a way of ensuring he could more easily invade their minds and take control of their bodies through his warging abilities. Although the evidence thus far has been pretty limited, the seeds have been planted, and it will be up to the showrunners to follow through on this plotline or not. This theory has been made popular by the YouTuber Joe Magician. If you want a deeper analysis, check out Joe's YouTube video on the topic. Helaena is a dragon dreamer. Throughout the season, you might have noticed Helaena, Alicent and Viserys' daughter, saying some pretty weird lines. At first, it is easy to dismiss them as the ramblings of some weird bug girl, but she might actually be a dragon dreamer. Dragon dreams are prophetic visions of the future that some members of House Targaryen experience. The show introduced us to Aegon's dream of the impending threat from the north and the need to unite the realm, as well as Viserys' vision of having a son who would succeed him on the Iron Throne. Like Viserys and Aegon before her, Helaena also seems to have dragon dreams. The most obvious example of this is in episode 6. After Aemond enters the dragon pit attempting to claim a dragon, Alicent chastises him for his reckless behavior, but assures him that someday he will have a dragon. In response to this, Helaena mutters to herself, "He'll have to close an eye," foreshadowing the events to come in the next episode, when Aemond boldly claims Vhagar, but loses an eye to Luke in the process, trading his left eye for a dragon, just as Helaena had foretold. The next prophecy of Helena's is a bit more mysterious. She says, "Hands turn loom, spools of green, spools of black, dragons of flesh, weaving dragons of thread." This seems to represent the battle lines being drawn between the two factions, with spools of green referring to Alicent's greens and her supporters, and spool of black referring to Rhaenyra and her side, with Otto Hightower, the Hand of the King, turning the loom, manipulating events and creating further hostility between the two branches of House Targaryen. Helaena also mutters another phrase twice: "There is a beast beneath the boards, and beware the beast beneath the boards." once in episode 8 at the family dinner, and again in episode 9 when Alicent tells her of Viserys' death. The beast beneath the board seems to foreshadow Aegon's coronation when Meleys and Rhaenys burst from below the dragon pit. But there might be a bit more to it. The phrase could also refer to a future event, but I will not spoil it here. As the seasons move on, pay close attention to Helena's ominous warnings. Most Targaryens who experience dragon dreams grow obsessed with their visions. This obsession consumes the dreamer and almost always leads to their end. Viserys, for example, was so obsessed with his dream of having a son that he continually tried for a male heir with his first wife, Aemma, despite the risk that pregnancy posed to her. Eventually, he sacrificed her life to cut a child from her, but in a cruel twist of fate, both Aemma and the child died, leaving Viserys to abandon his faith in his vision. He would eventually have a son with his second wife, Alicent, which leads to the fulfillment of his dream, with his son Aegon being crowned king after him. But the road to achieve his dream has left the realm divided and threatens the very future of House Targaryen. So the expectation here is that, like her father and so many before and after her, Helaena will grow obsessed with her visions until they consume her, eventually leading to tragedy. If you want to learn more about dragon dreams, check out this video breaking them down. The next theory is Helaena and Aemond might be secret lovers. In episode 7, Aegon and Aemond converse with one another, and it is revealed that Aegon and his sister Helaena are betrothed in the tradition of House Targaryen, where brother weds sister. However, Aegon has no interest in wedding his sister. Aemond, on the other hand, says he would happily do his duty and marry her if given the opportunity, leading many to suspect that Aemond was developing a crush on Helaena. In the following episode, Aegon and Helaena are married with 2 children. During the family dinner, Jace asks Helaena to dance in an attempt to ruffle Aegon's feathers, but instead of being offended as you might expect, Aegon looks to see Aemond's reaction, who is clearly upset and stares with jealousy at Jace and Helaena, unable to take his eye off the pair for the remainder of the dance. Aegon, looking for Aemond's reaction, seems to indicate that he is aware of his brother's feelings towards Helaena and might imply that the siblings have an open marriage agreement, an echo of Rhaenyra and Laenor's relationship from earlier in the series. So far, the evidence has been circumstantial at best, but in episode 9 we get a multitude of hints indicating that not only are Aemond and Helaena secret lovers, but Helena's children might actually be the result of their affair. When looking for Aegon after Viserys' death, Alicent and Otto enter Helena's chamber, where we see her and her children. During the conversation, when Alicent says the words father as Otto leaves, we hear Helena's children say something that sounds an awful lot like Aemond, and a couple of moments later, Aemond walks into the room, likely seeking Helena's company. This could be a subtle way for the writers to link Aemond as a father figure to Helena's children. Later in the episode, Aemond expresses his frustrations while searching for Aegon to Criston Cole, stating that he is next in line for the Iron Throne. But as far as the realm knows, Jaehaerys is Aegon's firstborn true son, and by law should inherit the throne. Aemond naming himself as next in line could be a slip of his secret knowledge that Jaehaerys is his bastard son, and as such should not be considered in the line of succession. If true, this would make Aemond the heir apparent. If Aemond is truly the father of Helena's children, this seeming slip of the tongue is some pretty genius level writing. At the end of the episode, when confronted by Meleys, Aemond positions himself to defend his sister, and most notably, Helaena is seen stroking his arm. If you remember earlier in the episode, and a couple of times throughout the series, Helaena had been seen recoiling when others had attempted to touch her, but she seems to have no problem touching Aemond. All of this evidence seems to point towards Aemond and Helaena having a secret affair, and that her children are actually Aemond's bastards. On a story level, this fits perfectly. The writers of the show use hypocrisy as a theme throughout the series. What is more hypocritical than Aegon having bastard children as his heirs, just as Rhaenyra had her bastard children as her heirs? But what did you guys think? Subscribe and leave a comment below.